My brothers and sisters, if you are watching this right now, I want you to know something. I am shaking as I speak these words. My name is Wayne. I am from the small village in the Ashanti region of Ghana, West Africa. My brothers and sisters, I speak to you today not as a stranger, but as one who has walked through the shadows, one who has seen the secrets hidden in darkness, and one who has been delivered by the light. For many years, I served powers you cannot even imagine. Powers that whispered lies, sowed fear, and bound people to chains they could not see. I saw the forces that keep people in poverty, that sabotage dreams, and that block the flow of blessings from the Most High. And today, I reveal to you what I learned in those dark years. Truths that the enemy does not want you to know. There are moments in time when the spiritual realm shifts, moments when the demonic forces that guard wealth and prosperity become vulnerable, moments when your prayers can pierce the darkness and open the door to abundance. These are not just ordinary prayers. They are strategic spiritual warfare prayers. Many people pray at random asking God for provision without understanding the spiritual laws that govern wealth. They pray in fear or in doubt or only when crisis comes knocking. But I tell you, there is a rhythm to the heavens, a timetable that aligns with spiritual victory. When you pray at these times, the chains of financial oppression weaken and doors of prosperity open. Do not underestimate the enemy. Demons that block your finances are cunning. They are patient and they feed on your ignorance. But I have learned their weaknesses. I have learned when they tremble, when they flee, and when your faith can send them running. And it is my mission today to equip you with this knowledge. I want you to understand that praying is not just asking, it is taking authority. When you pray with knowledge of these powerful moments, when you approach God with boldness and reverence, you are stepping into victory. You are declaring that the days of limitation, the nights of fear, and the chains of financial bondage are over. Your breakthrough is not an accident. Your prosperity is not a dream too far away. The heavens have set a time for favor, for multiplication, and for wealth. All you need to do is step into the moment, align your heart, and pray with understanding. The darkness may try to resist, but when God's timing meets your prayer, no force can stand against you. Brothers and sisters, today I challenge you to commit, to pray with strategy, to pray with faith, and to pray at the times when the spiritual enemy is most vulnerable. Watch and see how chains break, doors open, and blessings overflow in your life. Remember this: the enemy fears the prayers of the prepared, the bold, and the obedient. Your financial breakthrough is closer than you think, but it will come to those who take the knowledge of these spiritual times seriously, who pray without fear, and who persist until victory is manifest. The light has triumphed over darkness, and you are invited to walk in that light. Begin today. Pray at the times that the darkness trembles. Claim your prosperity. The heavens are ready to answer. There is a truth that very few understand, a truth hidden behind the veil of fear and deception. The darkness, though it terrifies and deceives, also holds secrets, secrets that it reveals only to those who have been delivered, those who have passed through its fires and emerged alive on the other side. I have walked in that darkness. I have seen things most people would run from. Things that whisper lies and promise power, but demand the soul in exchange. It is from that place I learned one of the most powerful spiritual laws. Nothing hidden in the dark remains hidden forever, but the darkness only exposes its secrets to the delivered. To those who have been set free by the light, when you are in the grip of fear, when you are entangled in despair, you are blind to the patterns and the traps that surround you. The darkness moves like water, shaping itself to the contours of your life slowly, silently, sometimes almost imperceptibly. It knows how to manipulate, how to deceive, how to turn your own thoughts and desires against you. But once you are delivered, once your eyes have been opened by the hand of God, you begin to see with spiritual clarity. What was once hidden becomes clear. The strategies of the enemy, the lies that were whispered into your mind, the strongholds that seemed unshakable, they are now revealed, and you can walk around them with wisdom. The delivered understand the language of darkness. They know when a circumstance is natural and when it is orchestrated. They know when a fear is their own or when it has been planted. I have witnessed people struggle their entire lives in cycles of lack and limitation, not knowing that each setback, each closed door was a pattern designed by spiritual forces. But the delivered see these patterns. They recognize the rhythm of spiritual warfare. They can detect deception before it strikes. And this awareness is a gift that comes only after passing through the trials that the darkness demands. Many dismiss this as superstition. They think prayer and obedience are enough, that a good heart and good intentions will shield them. But the truth is far deeper. The spiritual realm operates with rules and timing that most cannot perceive. The darkness follows rules too, and its power is not absolute. There are weaknesses, vulnerabilities, openings that only reveal themselves when the person seeking truth has endured enough, when they have walked far enough through the fire of testing to be ready to understand. This is why the darkness only reveals its secrets to the delivered. The untested, the unprepared cannot see it. Their eyes are veiled, and even if glimpses appear, they are often misinterpreted. The secrets of darkness are not merely knowledge of evil acts or schemes. They are insights into how spiritual forces manipulate every area of life, finances, relationships, health, and destiny. I have learned through bitter experience that every obstacle has a spiritual origin, and every spiritual origin has a weakness that can be exploited through wisdom, timing, and prayer. The darkness will try to hide these weaknesses from you. It will attempt to confuse and mislead you. But the delivered can see. They can see the footprints, the faint signs, the subtle energies that indicate where the chains are weakest. This is why those who have walked through oppression, fear, or even spiritual servitude can rise faster and overcome more completely than those who have never faced such trials. The process of being delivered is not easy. It demands humility, obedience, and a willingness to confront fear and shame. Many cannot endure it. They run at the first sign of struggle. They turn from the truth because it is uncomfortable. But those who stay, who persist, are the ones who gain access to the secrets. They learn that spiritual power is not about fear, control, or manipulation. It is about knowledge, timing and alignment with divine authority. They learned that every attack, every obstacle, every lie told by the darkness has a pattern and a moment of vulnerability. Once you know this secret, once you are delivered, you can step into the moment with confidence, knowing that the darkness cannot resist the one who walks in the light with understanding. I want you to understand this. Being delivered is more than a moment of salvation. It is a transformation that equips you to operate in realms that were once hidden. The darkness will test you, but it will also reveal itself, not to harm you further, but to show you the way to victory. The delivered are not victims. They are strategists in the spiritual battlefield. They know when to pray, how to pray, and when to act. They understand that every hardship endured, every night of fear, every season of waiting has prepared them to see the hidden truths. And in seeing those truths, they find freedom, abundance, and authority that the untested cannot comprehend. So if you desire to walk in power, if you desire to see what is hidden and walk unharmed through challenges that destroy others, understand this. The darkness reveals its secrets only to the delivered. It is not a curse, it is a privilege. It is a gift that comes through trials, obedience, and endurance. Those who are willing to face the shadows, to confront the lies, to endure the testing will emerge not only free, but empowered, ready to take authority over the very forces that once held them captive. And in that revelation, true prosperity, wisdom, and victory become inevitable. Many people believe poverty is only physical, that it is caused by lack of education, opportunity, or hard work. They study finance, they follow advice, they save, invest, and plan. Yet the cycle continues. What they do not realize is that poverty often has a spiritual dimension, a hidden realm that controls outcomes in ways the human eye cannot see. There are chains, invisible yet real, that bind people to limitation, scarcity, and lack. These chains are not random. They are strategically placed and carefully guarded by spiritual forces whose purpose is to ensure that wealth, favor, and breakthrough do not reach you. The truth is uncomfortable but essential. There is a kingdom of darkness that thrives on human poverty, on fear, on dependence, and on hopelessness. This kingdom does not only manipulate events in the physical world, it also sets spiritual traps that block abundance. Every missed opportunity, every sudden loss, every unexpected setback can carry the fingerprints of forces you cannot see, but that operate with intelligence and purpose. The chains of poverty are spiritual because they are enforced by beings who understand timing, human weakness, and the patterns of life. They guard this change jealously because when a person is released, their freedom exposes the lie that poverty is inevitable. I have walked in the world of shadows, and I have seen how these chains are placed. Some chains are subtle, almost invisible. A mindset of doubt that tells you you are not worthy of wealth, a fear of success that sabotages every attempt to move forward, a habit of settling for less than what God intended. Other chains are more direct, like unexpected financial losses, sudden betrayal by those you trust, or opportunities that vanish at the last moment. These are not coincidences. They are the work of spiritual guardians who enforce the bondage of poverty with precision. And yet the world is blind to this because Most people only look at the surface. The guardians of poverty are clever. They know how to use your own thoughts, fears, and weaknesses against you. They feed on worry, frustration, and comparison. They ensure that even when you try to step forward, you stumble. They exploit your impatience and your desire for instant results, keeping you trapped in a cycle that looks natural but is deeply spiritual. Many pray for breakthrough without realizing that the very chains they seek to remove are protected, guarded, and reinforced daily by these spiritual forces. And this is why many prayers go unanswered. It is not a lack of faith alone, it is a lack of awareness. Breaking these chains requires more than human effort. It requires spiritual insight, authority, and strategy. The delivered know this. They understand that financial freedom is not just a matter of working harder or learning new skills. It is a matter of confronting the spiritual reality that guards poverty, calling the forces to account, and removing their hold over life. The chains will resist, they will tighten. But the power of God, when applied with knowledge, timing, and boldness, can shatter every bond. This is why those who understand the spiritual dimension of poverty move faster, break through easier, and enjoy wealth in ways that seem miraculous to others. I have seen it happen repeatedly. A person who has been struggling for years, who feels trapped by circumstances, is suddenly able to move forward once the spiritual guardians of poverty are confronted. Doors open, debts are cancelled, opportunities appear, and the very forces that once worked in opposition flee. This is not luck, this is spiritual law in action. Poverty is a spiritual battleground, and only those who understand it, those who have eyes to see beyond the physical, can overcome it. It is important to recognize that these chains are not always imposed as punishment. They are often the product of long standing agreements, ancestral patterns, or spiritual assignments. Some chains are inherited, passed down through generations, affecting family finances, careers, and relationships. Others are opportunistic, taking advantage of personal weaknesses, past decisions, or moments of compromise. The guardians of these chains do not sleep. They work diligently to maintain the status quo, to ensure that abundance is delayed, diminished, or denied. This is why persistence and spiritual awareness are essential. You cannot fight what you cannot see. The first step to breaking these chains is awareness. You must acknowledge that poverty can be spiritual, that it can be guarded, and that forces exist to resist your breakthrough. The second step is confrontation through prayer, fasting, and authority in the name of God. These guardians can be challenged. The third step is obedience and alignment with divine instruction, because the chains are connected to the natural and spiritual laws that govern life. The delivered understand this sequence. They do not act blindly. They do not expect instant results. They act with strategy, precision, and faith, knowing that each action weakens the hold of spiritual guardians. I want you to see the reality clearly. The chains of poverty are real. They are guarded, and they will fight to keep you in limitation. But they are not stronger than God, and they are not invincible. Once you are delivered, once you gain insight into their operations, you can dismantle them piece by piece. What was once impossible becomes possible. What was once blocked becomes open. What was once a cycle of lack transforms into a cycle of blessing. The guardians may resist, but the power of the delivered is greater than the forces that seek to hold them down. The truth is simple. Poverty is not inevitable. Limitation is not permanent. Spiritual guardians may exist, but they are defeated through knowledge, faith, and action. The chains of poverty are not just physical, they are spiritual, and they are only overcome by those who see, who believe, and who act in the authority of the light. Break free, and you will find that abundance, opportunity, and prosperity were always within reach. They were simply waiting for you to recognize and confront the guardians that held them from you. The spiritual realm operates with a precision that most people cannot even imagine. There are forces at work that observe, calculate, and exploit the smallest weaknesses in our lives. These forces, often called demons, are not mindless. They are intelligent, strategic, and patient. They understand the patterns of human behavior and the cycles of the natural world. And one of the most dangerous truths I learned in the darkness is that demons have weaknesses, but they also know time. They know when to attack, when to retreat, and when to reinforce the chains that hold people in limitation. Understanding both their weaknesses and their timing is essential if you desire to walk in freedom and abundance. The enemy is clever. It does not strike blindly. It waits for moments of distraction, moments of doubt, moments when your faith is low or your heart is heavy. These are the windows through which it operates most effectively. It knows the rhythms of your life, your routines, your habits, and even your thoughts. It positions itself strategically to influence decisions, block opportunities, and sow confusion. Yet, for all its knowledge and cunning, it is not without weakness. Every demon, every spiritual assignment, every oppressive force carries within it a vulnerability. These weaknesses are rarely obvious to the untrained eye, but they exist, and when discovered, they can be exploited with precision, timing, and authority. I have learned through experience that spiritual warfare is not random. It is not about simply praying harder or speaking louder. It is about understanding the enemy's patterns and recognizing the moments when their defenses are lowest. There are times of day, times of the week, and even moments in spiritual cycles when the forces of darkness are less vigilant, when their hold is loosened, and when prayer can pierce through with maximum effect. These are the moments that the untrained believer often misses. They pray at random, hoping for results, unaware that timing in the spiritual realm is as critical as strategy on a battlefield. Weaknesses in the enemy are revealed in many ways. Some are revealed through revelation from God, a quiet whisper, or an insight that directs you to the right time to pray or act. Others are revealed through observation. Patterns in your life, repeated obstacles, recurring blocks. Demons operate through predictability, through habits, through exploitation of human patterns. And the delivered, those who have walked through the darkness and emerged in the light, can see these weaknesses. They can identify the points of attack, the moments of vulnerability, and the exact strategies that will disarm the enemy and break their hold over life. Timing is not just about hours on a clock. It is about spiritual alignment. There are moments when demonic assignments are reinforced by fear doubt, and indecision, there are other moments when they are weakened. When prayer, fasting, and bold declarations can cause the enemy to tremble, the difference between breakthrough and stagnation often lies in this alignment. Those who understand time can pray at the precise moment when the spiritual forces are vulnerable, when the windows of opportunity are open, and when the words carry authority that cannot be resisted. This knowledge transforms ordinary prayer into spiritual warfare that produces tangible results. It is critical to understand that demons are aware of time because they operate in both the natural and spiritual worlds. They track patterns and anticipate actions. They wait for moments of human weakness to strike, for hesitation to paralyze you, for delay to create fear. But their awareness is not absolute. Their strategies rely on human ignorance and inaction. Once you become aware, once you learn to observe their movements, to act decisively, and to pray strategically, their team in can be turned against them. The moment they attempt to act, you can counteract it with authority, and what was once a period of vulnerability for you becomes a moment of weakness for them. The power of timing, combined with knowledge of weaknesses, cannot be overstated. Many believers struggle for years praying faithfully yet seeing little change. Their prayers are not ineffective because God does not hear them. They are ineffective because they miss the spiritual windows when the enemy is vulnerable. Once you begin to understand these windows, once you learn to pray and act with strategic timing, the chains of limitation begin to fall. Opportunities that were blocked, resources that were delayed, and favor that seemed distant suddenly manifest. It is not magic. It is the natural result of engaging the spiritual battle with insight, precision, and boldness. I have witnessed the transformative effect of applying this knowledge. When prayers align with the vulnerability of the enemy, what was once a struggle becomes triumph. Financial barriers fall, relationships heal, opportunities multiply. The very forces that once oppressed flee in confusion, but this requires patience, discipline, and awareness. The darkness is not passive, it is active, and it seeks to maintain control through vigilance. Understanding their weaknesses and their timing allows you to operate in authority while they are unprepared. Let me make this clear. Demons are not omnipotent. They are limited by divine authority, by the boundaries set by God, and by the weaknesses inherent in their nature, but they are strategic and aware. And if you act without knowledge or timing, your efforts may be resisted or delayed. The delivered, those who have walked through trials and gained spiritual insight, do not pray randomly. They pray with awareness of these patterns. They attack at the moments when they end. Emmy is weakest and act boldly when the windows of opportunity are open. Victory is possible, prosperity, freedom, and breakthrough are attainable. But you must recognize the intelligence of the enemy and the critical role of timing. Demons have weaknesses and they know time. The delivered understand both. They see the patterns. They act strategically and they pray with authority. This is how chains are broken, how limitation is destroyed, and how lives are transformed from scarcity into abundance. There is a profound principle in the spiritual realm that most people do not understand. Timing is everything. You may pray faithfully every day, speak words of faith, and cry out for breakthrough, yet your prayers may encounter resistance. This is because prayer is not just about speaking. It is about aligning with the spiritual order, about stepping into the precise moment when your words carry the most weight, the exact time when the unseen realms are most receptive. Prayers offered at strategic times pierce the veil of darkness, penetrate the defenses of the enemy, and open doors that were previously locked. Understanding this principle is essential for anyone who desires true breakthrough, prosperity, and victory. The veil I speak of is the barrier between the natural and the spiritual. It is a threshold that separates human effort from divine intervention, ordinary results from supernatural outcomes. Most people attempt to force change through human means alone, trying to manipulate circumstances without recognizing the spiritual dynamics at play. But the delivered know that there are windows of opportunity, specific spiritual moments when prayers can cross the veil and enter realms of divine activity. During these times, the forces of darkness are less vigilant. The chains of limitation are weakened, and the heavens are poised to release blessings. Praying at random may reach God, but it may not reach the point where change is enacted in the spiritual realm. Strategic timing ensures that your prayers hit the target with maximum impact. Timing in prayer is not an abstract concept. It is grounded in spiritual awareness. Some hours of the day, certain days of the week, and particular seasons in life carry greater spiritual potency. These are times when demonic forces are naturally weaker, when the flow of favor and abundance can be accessed with greater ease, and when prophetic declarations have a stronger effect. I have seen countless believers pray at random, expecting results, and become frustrated when nothing changes. The reason is simple. The veil was still strong, the enemy's defenses intact, and the spiritual alignment incomplete. But when prayers are offered at strategic times, the veil trembles and the forces of darkness begin to lose their grip. The strategic times for prayer are revealed through revelation and spiritual insight. The delivered can discern these moments through the guidance of God, through patterns in life, and through careful observation of spiritual dynamics. They do not act in haste or out of desperation. They watch, they wait, and they move when the time is right. This is the difference between prayer that produces fleeting comfort and prayer that produces tangible, lasting results. Strategic prayer is precise, purposeful, and bold, breaking through barriers that ordinary prayer cannot touch. Piercing the veil requires more than just timing. It requires authority and clarity. The spoken word carries power, but its effectiveness depends on alignment with divine will. When you pray at strategic times, speaking with faith and authority, you are not merely asking. You are taking action in the spiritual realm, confronting the forces that have held back your blessings and declaring your victory. The veil begins to lift. The unseen walls crumble and the heavens respond. Those who have learned this principle do not pray out of fear, doubt, or confusion. They pray with certainty, knowing that their words spoken at the right time have the power to change reality. The veil is most resistant when prayers are rushed, scattered, or inconsistent. Many believers fail to recognize that spiritual timing is like a lock on a door. You can knock all day, but unless you have the key, the strategic time, the door remains shut. I have witnessed individuals struggle for years, praying faithfully, yet receiving little only to experience sudden breakthroughs when they learned to pray at the moments the spiritual order favored. The breakthrough was not accidental. It was the result of strategic alignment, a precise entry into the spiritual moment when prayer could pierce the veil and access the divine. The effect of prayer at strategic times is profound. Not only does it weaken the enemy, but it also strengthens the believer. Faith grows because results are tangible. Authority is reinforced because you learn that the spiritual realm responds to precision and insight. Opportunities appear, resources are released, and favor flows in ways that seem miraculous. These are the moments when scarcity transforms into abundance. Limitation becomes expansion, and struggle is replaced by victory. The veil is no longer an obstacle. It becomes a threshold you can cross with confidence. I have seen these principles operate repeatedly. A person who had been blocked in their finances suddenly receives favor at work, new opportunities, and financial breakthrough after praying at the precise times revealed to them. A relationship once trained begins to heal. A project long delayed finds sudden acceleration. These are not coincidences. They are the natural result of prayer intersecting with the Spirit. UL rhythms that govern the unseen realms. The veil cannot withstand the force of a prayer offered at the right time with faith, clarity, and authority. Strategic prayer is not a formula to manipulate God, nor is it a guarantee of instant results. It is a disciplined approach to spiritual engagement, a recognition that the unseen world operates with law and order. By learning to pray at the times when the veil is weakest, when spiritual forces are most receptive, and when divine favor is most accessible, you step into a pattern of life where breakthrough becomes inevitable. The darkness resists, but it cannot stand against a prayer aligned with time, faith, and authority. Let me remind you, ordinary prayer may comfort, but strategic prayer changes destinies. It pierces the veil, breaks strongholds, and releases blessings that were previously inaccessible. It requires patience, discernment, and obedience. But the results are undeniable. The delivered understand this principle and they act with confidence. They pray when the enemy is weakest, when the heavens are aligned, and when their words carry maximum impact. This is how scarcity is turned into abundance, limitation into freedom, and struggle into victory. Many people believe that prayer is simply a matter of speaking words into the air, asking God for what they need, and hoping for results. They pray when convenient, when they remember, or when they are desperate. But this kind of prayer is often random, unfocused, and ineffective. The truth is harsh but liberating. The spiritual realm does not respond to chaos. There is a pattern, a strategy, and a rhythm to effective prayer. And without understanding it, even the most faithful words can be blocked, delayed, or ignored. Random prayer lacks power because it does not align with the spiritual order. It does not pierce the veil or confront the forces that resist your breakthrough. Random prayer is ineffective because it is reactive, not proactive. People pray when something goes wrong, when crisis strikes, or when they are on the verge of despair. This is like trying to fight an enemy only when they attack, instead of understanding the battlefield, knowing their tactics, and preparing in advance. The forces that oppose your progress are intelligent. They anticipate moments of weakness, hesitation, and distraction. They know when you are likely to pray out of fear or confusion, and they exploit these moments to maintain control. Random prayers often arrive too late to be effective. They catch the enemy at a time when your spiritual position is weak. Focused strategic prayer, on the other hand, is powerful. It is deliberate, consistent, and aligned with divine timing. When you pray with understanding, you do more than ask. You take authority, confront the spiritual forces at work, and disrupt the strategies that have kept you in limitation. Random prayer lacking this precision is scattered. It does not reach the strongholds. It does not weaken the chains, and it does not engage the spiritual laws that govern life. It may bring temporary comfort, a sense of relief or emotional release, but it rarely produces lasting change or breakthrough. The problem with random prayer is that it assumes all moments are equal. In the spiritual realm, they are not. Some hours, days, and seasons carry far greater power than others. The enemy knows this, and they guard the weak points carefully. Random prayer often misses these windows, striking when the forces of darkness are strong and when the heavens are least aligned. It is like trying to open a locked door by banging on it at random. Without the key, without the timing, without the authority, you may make noise, but you will not gain access. Random prayer also fails because it is often emotionally driven rather than spiritually guided. People pray in panic, in desperation, or in anger. These prayers may contain strong emotion, but they lack focus, authority, and clarity. Spiritual warfare requires strategy. It requires awareness of the enemy's tactics, knowledge of their weaknesses, and alignment with divine instruction. Without these elements, prayer becomes ineffective. The enemy may even exploit the emotional chaos, turning your desperation into further delay, confusion, or frustration. Random prayer leaves you vulnerable because it is not backed by insight, preparation, or timing. Consistency is another factor. Random prayer is by its nature irregular. It is sporadic and unpredictable. Effective prayer, especially in the context of breaking financial or spiritual strongholds, requires discipline and repetition. The forces that maintain limitation are persistent. They will not surrender after a single random attempt. They require sustained spiritual pressure delivered at strategic times and carried out with authority and faith. Random prayer lacks this persistence. It is easily ignored by the spiritual forces that resist your progress because it shows no pattern, no authority, and no strategy. Random prayer is also ineffective because it often ignores the spiritual dimensions of your life. Many pray only for visible outcomes, money, health, relationships, without addressing the unseen forces that influence these areas. They ask for results without breaking the chains, confronting the assignments, or aligning with the spiritual laws that govern life. The delivered understand that every problem has both a natural and a spiritual root. Random prayer addresses the natural without touching the spiritual. Strategic prayer engages both realms simultaneously, attacking the root, causes weakening the enemy and creating an environment where breakthrough can manifest. I have seen the difference countless times. People who pray randomly struggle for years, hoping for change yet seeing little progress. Those same people, when guided to pray with strategy, timing, and authority, experience sudden breakthroughs, their finances multiply, their relationships heal, and opportunities appear that were previously blocked. The difference is not luck or magic. It is the principle that random prayer is ineffective and strategic prayer pierces the veil. The spiritual realm respects order, precision, and alignment. Randomness, by contrast, carries no weight in the battle for your life. Ultimately, random prayer is ineffective because it does not engage the spiritual laws. It is like sending a message into the void without direction or timing. The forces that oppose your success are organized, strategic, and disciplined. To overcome them, you must be equally deliberate. You must pray with focus, insight, and alignment. You must move according to spiritual timing, not human convenience. Only then does prayer become a weapon, a key, and a force that breaks through the barriers, pierces the veil, and opens the doors that have long been closed. The truth is simple but powerful. Your breakthrough, your freedom, your prosperity will not come from random prayer. It comes from deliberate, strategic, and consistent prayer offered at the right time with authority, faith, and insight. When you understand this principle, the chains of limitation begin to fall, and the spiritual realm aligns to release the blessings that have been waiting for you. Random prayer conquers. Faith is more than belief. Faith is not just hoping or wishing that things will improve. Faith is a force, a spiritual weapon, and a channel through which divine power flows into the unseen realms. Without faith, prayer is weak, ineffective, and easily resisted. With faith, prayer becomes a weapon that shakes the foundations of spiritual strongholds and pierces through the walls of limitation. I have walked in the world of shadows, and I have seen the truth. The forces that oppose human progress are strong, intelligent, and patient. They wait for hesitation, for doubt, for fear. But when a believer prays with genuine faith, the very air trembles, the darkness begins to falter, and the enemy loses ground. Faith amplifies the spiritual attack because it releases a force that the darkness cannot contain. The enemy thrives on doubt, uncertainty, and hesitation. These are the levels through which it controls human life. People pray, but they pray with half-hearted words, with wavering belief, or with thoughts filled with fear. This type of prayer often produces no change because it carries no weight in the spiritual realm. Faith, however, is different. Faith is certainty, conviction, and alignment with the promises of God. It is a declaration that no force, no obstacle, and no demonic assignment can withstand the authority of the believer who prays with boldness and trust. Faith is the fuel that transforms ordinary words into spiritual firepower. I have witnessed situations where prayers without faith were completely ignored by the enemy, while prayers offered with unwavering belief brought immediate disruption to spiritual assignments. Faith is not passive, it is aggressive. It does not wait for circumstances to improve. It moves heaven and earth, confronts the darkness, and forces change. The enemy may plan, strategize, and guard, but it cannot resist the energy and authority that flow from a prayer anchored in faith. This is why faith is not optional for spiritual victory. It is essential. Without it, the strongest prayer is like a sword without edge, a weapon that cannot cut through the forces of oppressing. On faith amplifies spiritual attack because it aligns the believer with divine timing and power. When you pray in faith, you are not merely asking for results. You are entering into the dynamics of spiritual warfare. You are signaling to the heavens that you are ready to receive, that you are prepared to confront the enemy, and that you trust the power of God to act on your behalf. Faith focuses the attack, strengthens the intention, and ensures that your prayer reaches the points of weakness in the enemy's strategy. It is like a precision strike in a battle. The stronger the faith, the more forceful the impact. Doubt, fear, and unbelief weaken spiritual attacks. They create hesitation, confusion, and inconsistency. They allow the enemy to recover, reinforce its positions, and maintain control. But faith breaks through these defenses. Faith moves through obstacles, overcomes resistance, and compels the spiritual realm to respond. When you pray in faith, the very forces that guard poverty, limitation, and delay begin to tremble. The darkness recognizes authority, and it knows that faith is not something to be underestimated. It is a power that cannot be reasoned with, negotiated with, or resisted in the long term. Faith attacks relentlessly, persistently, and effectively. Faith also amplifies prayer because it produces action. Faith does not exist in isolation. It works in tandem with obedience, strategy, and consistency. When a person prays with faith, they are compelled to follow divine instruction, take steps aligned with God's will, and persevere through challenges. This action fueled by faith strengthens the spiritual attack. The enemy not only faces the power of prayer, but also the evidence of faith in motion. Plans are blocked, schemes are revealed, and chains are broken. Faith makes prayer unstoppable because it combines spiritual authority with natural obedience, creating a force that moves in both realms simultaneously. I have seen miracles occur in moments when faith was the deciding factor. People on the brink of despair, facing insurmountable obstacles, praying with absolute trust, witnessed the sudden collapse of long standing limitations. Doors opened, finances multiplied, relationships healed, and opportunities appeared where none seemed possible. The difference was not circumstance, talent, or human effort. It was faith. The prayers were effective because they carried the weight of conviction, the fire of belief, and the authority of alignment with God. Faith magnified the attack on every spiritual barrier that had stood for years. Faith is also contagious in the spiritual realm. When a believer prays with unwavering trust, it strengthens the atmosphere around them. Angels are dispatched, favor is released, and the heavens respond. Even the enemy feels the pressure because faith signals that the human vessel is under divine protection and that the spiritual attack will not be ignored. This is more than emotion, it is power. It amplifies the spiritual attack because it transforms prayer from mere words into unstoppable force. The lesson is clear. Prayer without faith is limited. Prayer with faith is unstoppable. Faith multiplies the spiritual impact of your words, pierces the defenses of darkness, and ensures that your declarations align with divine authority. The enemy fears faith because it cannot resist it. Faith empowers you to break chains, seize opportunities, and experience breakthroughs that were once impossible. It amplifies spiritual attack, disrupts the plans of the enemy, and opens the door to blessings reserved for those who dare to trust fully and pray boldly. There is a principle in the spiritual realm that is often overlooked, yet it is one of the most powerful keys to receiving breakthrough and prosperity. Obedience. Obedience is not merely following instructions or doing what seems right in the natural. Obedience is a spiritual alignment with God's will, a deliberate positioning of yourself under divine authority, and a declaration that you will move according to the timing, direction, and instructions of the Most High. Without obedience, prayer can lose its effectiveness. Faith can falter and spiritual attacks may go unanswered. But with obedience, favor flows, chains break, and opportunities appear that were once thought impossible. The forces of darkness thrive on disobedience. They exploit human pride, stubbornness, and delay. Every act of resistance, hesitation, or compromise strengthens the grip of limitation and blocks blessings. When you act outside of God's guidance, even unintentionally, you create gaps that the enemy can exploit. The enemy watches closely, waiting for moments when your obedience falters, when you justify disobedience, or when you prioritize convenience over divine instruction. These gaps allow it to maintain control, to block provision, and to resist your progress. Obedience closes those gaps and creates a clear path for favor to flow. Obedience unlocks favor because it signals to the spiritual realm that you are ready and worthy to receive. Favor is not given randomly. It is released to those whose hearts, actions, and timing align with God's purposes. When you obey, you demonstrate humility, submission, and trust. And these qualities activate doors that no human effort can open. I have seen people pray faithfully for years, yet their prayers yielded little because they resisted God's instructions in some way, perhaps out of pride, fear, or disbelief. When they finally obeyed, favor rushed in. Barriers fell, opportunities multiplied, and chains of limitation shattered almost instantly. Obedience is the key that opens locked gates in the spiritual realm. Spiritual favor is often connected to practical obedience in the natural realm as well. God's instructions may come through the word, prophetic guidance, or inner revelation. Acting on these instructions demonstrates that you are aligned with divine strategy. When you obey, you are not just moving in the natural, you are activating spiritual alignment. Your obedience amplifies the effect of prayer, enhances the power of faith, and creates openings in the spiritual atmosphere. Angels move on your behalf, blessings are released, and the forces that guard poverty, delay, or limitation are weakened. Disobedience, however, creates resistance. It delays the release of favor, closes doors, and strengthens the enemy's position. Obedience also protects you from deception. In the spiritual realm, there are many traps designed to mislead, misdirect, or manipulate. Disobedience, even in small matters, can make you vulnerable to these attacks. The enemy exploits any act of rebellion or compromise. But when you act with complete obedience, you shield yourself. You align with truth, righteousness, and divine authority. Your path becomes clear, and the enemy cannot find leverage to block your progress. The delivered understand this principle deeply. Obedience is both a shield and a key. It protects while it opens doors. Another aspect of obedience is timing. Many fail to act promptly when instructed by God. Delays, hesitation, or procrastination give the enemy time to recover, reinforce, and resist. Immediate obedience, however, maximizes spiritual momentum. When you act quickly, you ride the wave of favor and authority. Timing and obedience work together. The right action at the right time magnifies impact, pierces spiritual strongholds, and accelerates breakthrough. Disobedience, even in small matters, can disrupt this rhythm and slow prey, ogress the forces of darkness exploit every delay. But when you obey without hesitation, you are unstoppable. Obedience unlocks favor not only for yourself, but for others around you. The spiritual realm responds to integrity, alignment, and submission to God's will. When you obey, blessings flow through you to your family, community, and sphere of influence. The darkness recognizes this and resists, but it cannot overcome the authority granted to one who is faithful in obedience. I have seen individuals who were consistent in small acts of obedience suddenly experience breakthroughs that far exceeded their expectations. What seemed minor in the natural, like giving generously, following a prompt, or speaking a word of encouragement, became the key that unlocked massive favor and opened doors to wealth, health, and opportunity. The key lesson is clear. Obedience is not optional for those who desire true spiritual victory. It is a non negotiable principle that governs the flow of favor, prosperity, and protection. Faith and prayer are powerful, but they are multiplied when coupled with obedience. The enemy fears obedience because it bypasses their influence, cuts off their leverage, and releases blessings that were previously blocked. To operate in favor, you must obey fully, promptly, and faithfully. Your obedience is the signal that you are ready for supernatural breakthrough. It aligns your life with heaven's timing, activates spiritual authority, and forces the darkness to release what it has been guarding. Favor is not random. Blessings are not accidental. They are released to those who walk in obedience, follow instructions, and align their lives with God's will. Obedience unlocks favor, pierces spiritual strongholds, and brings into manifestation what prayer alone cannot achieve. The delivered know this. Obedience is the master key that opens doors, shatters limitation, and positions you for supernatural success. Without it, prayers may falter, faith may weaken, and opportunities may be missed. With it, nothing can stand in your way. There is a force in the spiritual realm that responds not to occasional cries, not to prayers whispered in desperation, but to those who refuse to give up. Persistence in prayer is a weapon, a declaration, and a spiritual strategy that guarantees breakthrough. I have walked in the shadows and seen how the enemy thrives on delay, discouragement, and abandonment. It waits patiently for believers to grow weary, to stop praying, and to settle for less than God intended. But when you persist, when you pray without ceasing, without compromise, and without fear, you begin to activate power that the darkness cannot withstand. Persistent prayer is relentless, unstoppable, and catalytic. It shifts the spiritual atmosphere and forces the unseen to respond. The enemy is clever and patient. It watches, it waits, and it allows moments of apparent stagnation to test your resolve. Many believers pray for months, even years, without seeing results, and the enemy whispers lies. It will never happen. God is not listening, or your prayers are useless. These lies are designed to break your persistence, to make you stop praying, and to allow limitation to continue. But those who endure, who continue to pray despite frustration, delay, or apparent silence, eventually pierce the veil. They discover that breakthrough is often hidden behind resistance, that favor is often delayed to refine faith, and that the enemy is most threatened when prayer refuses to stop. Persistent prayer guarantees breakthrough because it builds spiritual momentum. Every prayer offered in faith, every cry, every declaration compounds like energy in a storm. The enemy may resist, but persistence creates pressure. The forces that guard limitation cannot withstand the weight of a determined, unwavering, and consistent attack. The heavens respond because persistence demonstrates commitment, alignment, and authority. When you refuse to stop praying, you signal that you will not be moved by delay, that you will not compromise in the face of resistance, and that you are ready to receive the blessings that have been delayed. I have seen this principle in action countless times. Individuals who prayed inconsistently often faced the same challenges repeatedly. They would pray one day, falter the next, and wonder why the change remained. Yet those who prayed persistently day after day in the same pattern of faith and obedience eventually saw the chains fall. The difference was not human effort, intelligence, or talent. It was persistence. The forces that had resisted them for years could not survive the pressure created by unwavering prayer. Persistence broke the cycle, shattered delay, and activated supernatural results. Persistent prayer is not passive. It is strategic, focused, and deliberate. It involves repetition without weariness, attention to spiritual timing, and alignment with God's will. The delivered understand that breakthrough requires endurance, not speed, consistency, not occasional bursts, and faith, not mere hope. Each prayer, when offered persistently, is a spiritual strike, a blow against the darkness that strengthens over time. What may seem like a small, ineffective effort accumulates into unstoppable spiritual power. The more consistent the attack, the more the forces of limitation weaken, and the sooner the breakthrough manifests. Another reason persistence guarantees breakthrough is that it produces refinement in the believer. Repeated prayer, especially when results are delayed, cultivates patience, strengthens faith, and sharpens discernment. The process itself is part of the breakthrough. The enemy may try to frustrate, distract, or discourage, but persistent prayer transforms your character, aligns your spirit with God's timing, and strengthens your authority. It is not just about getting results, it is about becoming a vessel capable of sustaining the blessing. Breakthrough without preparation often leads to compromise or loss. But persistence ensures that when the blessing comes, you are ready to receive it fully. The spiritual realm respects persistence because it demonstrates determination under authority. Angels are dispatched, favor is released, and doors are unlocked for those who refuse to stop. The enemy recognizes this and it fears persistence because it cannot outlast it.